Go Texas Democrats! I want to tell you a story about my greatest hero, my Republican grandfather who fought against the status quo and taught me that we all must do our part to make Texas as good as its promise. My grandfather, Dr. Robert K. Pendergrass, would have been 100 years old this year. He was the rock of our family, larger than life, and one of the best men I've ever known. He volunteered for service the day after Pearl Harbor. He would go on to become a surgeon and small-town doctor, trading medical services for meals or whatever his patients could afford. My grandfather loved his family, his community, and his country. And as I've gotten older, I learned that we can all learn a lot from him. You see, in the 1960s, he ran for president of the local school board on the platform of desegregating the schools. This was a full decade after Brown versus Board of Education in a small town in East Texas called Pittsburgh. In spite of the noise and the threats, my grandfather stayed true to his convictions. And when he won his race for school board, he kept his promise and integrated Pittsburgh ISD. Later in life, he helped administer the Texas Medicaid program. He was appointed first by Republican Governor Bill Clements, but then reappointed by Democratic Governor Mark White. He was proud of that bipartisanship. Now, shortly before I was elected, my grandfather passed away. We buried him on my 34th birthday, and he never got to see me be sworn in. But I think of him every time I turn my key and press my button to vote on the House floor. I think of the legacy that he left our family and the lessons he taught us about serving our community. My grandfather used to tell us grandkids, Texas needs victors, and I hope you will be one of them. My grandfather believed, as I believe, that Texas has so much potential, but we are leaving too many of our neighbors behind. I wish I could say that was an accident or an oversight, but it's the result of 30 years of intentional decision-making by radical extremists who put profit and power above doing what's best for Texans. The Republican Party no longer believes in my grandfather's Texas. If you measure society by how it treats children, the vulnerable, and the underserved, Greg Abbott's Texas is a colossal failure. Our neighborhood schools are underfunded, and educators go without a raise while we ban books, whitewash history, and lie about global warming. Families struggle to afford food and health care while we turn down billions in federal funds. Maternal mortality is on the rise. Abortion has been banned, and IVF and contraception are on the chopping block. Parents who love their LGBTQ+ children are attacked for simply supporting their kids. Hard-fought gains on voting rights have been rolled back, and gerrymandering has stacked the deck against the people. Kids can't even go to school without the looming threat of gun violence, and even while 1 million Texas children don't have health insurance and rural hospitals are closing at record rates, Greg Abbott has refused to expand Medicaid and bring our tax dollars home to help our neighbors. This is the Texas of Greg Abbott and Ted Cruz. This is the Texas Republican extremists brag about. This is a Texas my Republican grandfather would have been ashamed of. But it doesn't have to be this way. In spite of the bigotry, the hatred, the obstruction, and the corruption that we've seen from our state leaders and from Donald Trump and his enablers, in spite of all of that, I still have hope for better days ahead. I still wake up every day dedicated to building a Texas as good as its promise. The story of Texas is the story of resilience. From farmers and ranchers to rough riders and wildcatters, to musicians, football stars, and tech giants, it is from this great state that astronauts reach for the stars. Texas is where people have come to achieve more than they could have ever dreamed. That's not to say it hasn't been hard, or that we haven't fallen short in our pursuits or failed to live up to our highest ideals, because we have, and we will again. But what will define us as a party, as a state, as a people, is what we do next. Know this, Texas Democrats, we are not the bystanders in the story of our future. We are the authors. The power to create change lies within each of us. Our fight to build a Texas as good as its promise is about what we do with that power, how we close the gap between the promise and the reality of Texas. It comes down to the very heart of our humanity. to our commitment to care for those in need, and our responsibility to ensure we leave our world better than we found it. It's about building a table big enough for everyone. We are told hope is an action. It's not a belief. It's the hope of the activists organized in their community. The hope of the first-time candidate who feels they have something to offer. It's the hope of the frontline worker, the laborer, the teacher who knows their work builds this state's future. Be deterred by the cynics. Set aside the tired thinking that says Texas Democrats cannot succeed, that the odds against us are too high, that our opposition is too strong to overcome, because together we will defeat Donald Trump and re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Together we will defeat Ted Cruz and elect my friend Colin Allred to the U.S. Senate. Together we will reject MAGA extremism and build a Texas as big as his promise. Texas Democrats, in the words of my grandfather, Texas needs victors, and I hope, I know you will be one of them. Thank y'all.